Senator Sessions, I hope you're having a great day, sir. I hope all the family is well. Welcome back to Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Well, good. Yeah, we were there yesterday and had a great visit. And just posted a letter a couple of days ago from my Camden, Alabama classmate, Judy Bonner, the provost and president of the University of Alabama, supporting me. And it was very nice. So it was good to be in Tuscaloosa, where I attended law school.
Sure. And I want to get into a lot of different things with you, Senator. And first off, I hope all the family is well. And how are you managing the last 115 days? What's the trials been like managing your campaign and also trying to respect all this social distancing? Because we know how important campaigning is for getting out, shaking hands, and letting people know that your platform and where you stand.
It is difficult, actually. It's kind of frustrating because groups that normally would invite you to speak, the civic clubs or other groups are not meeting. Many of them are just not meeting. We're having a few, and I go. And people are pretty cautious, but and we need to be. So that's kind of there. I have been on 100, maybe 200 talk shows in the last 3 months. Radio talk shows. To me, this is the best way to communicate, about the only way in this circumstance that you can actually have a conversation about a particular issue. So we've worked hard at that, and we've done national as well as local. Well, Tucker Carlson Wednesday night, and he was fabulous there and gave us said some nice things. So that's kind of the way we've been doing. We're traveling the state. I went from Mobile to Montgomery to Huntsville to Birmingham to Tuscaloosa and back in Montgomery. We've just done 3. This is the 4th talk show I've done today.
Senator Sessions, when you look at the jobs that you have held and looking at being a senator and representing the great state of Alabama, I'll never forget, I visited with you when the Affordable Health Care Act was being pushed and rammed through our throat. I remember driving to Washington, D.C., and I sat in your office and signed a petition asking you to vote against that and try to find a way that we could block that. You listened to me. You gave me your time, and I was very thankful for that. But I look at the current direction of our society, where we're going. What made you get back and say, I want to be back in Washington, D.C., representing the state of Alabama?
I'm not a braggart, and I certainly don't want to overestimate any one person's ability to impact things, but I honestly believe this country is in a crisis. We're threatened. Our future is uneven. We've got a major the Democratic Party, going off the rails and being almost dictated to by radical elements that don't understand or respect even the foundation of our country, say that 4th of July is a racist act. These kind of things are very dangerous. And you get a socialist candidate, almost becomes the nominee of the Democratic Party. An avowed socialist, Bernie Sanders, got elected to the senator in Vermont as a socialist. So I just think that the opportunity that people of Alabama gave me to learn about this, I became more and more at odds with the establishment forces, the politically correct crowd, the university liberal professors, the media, and the liberal establishment, and that's why I really broke ranks with Republicans and became the first one to support Trump, because I saw in him a strength and a drive that would break ranks with where we were going. And I know people, Trump's not happy with me. He didn't think I should recuse, but I did what the law required me to do. I did what the law required me to do, as God gave me the ability to follow it, and I think it was clear. But but I do believe in that agenda, that we would fix this health care bill. We have an opportunity to fix it. We've got to protect American manufacturing against unfair trading competition. We got to stand up to China, and we've got to end the illegality at our borders. And this is going to be done in the first 2 years if he's reelected, and I think he will, the first 2 years of that term, because you become a lame duck, So we need to hit the ground running with a United States senator that's passionate about the issues, who will fight for them, who has a proven record. I led the fight against the immigration amnesty bogus bill. I led the fight against the Obama Trans-Pacific Partnership trade bill that only 5 Republicans voted against. Senator Shelby and I were 2 of them, but I led the fight on that. And so I feel like working with Senator Shelby and our delegation, I can hit the ground running to protect our interests, universities, and also be a strong voice for the fundamental values that Alabamians adhere to. And I know my opponent runs ads in a weight room saying he's strong. Somebody else lifts in weights, but he's strong, okay? But the strength in Washington requires you to stand for conviction, for principle, against odds, and take on challenges and speak up on a daily basis. 1 year, I spoke more on the floor of the Senate than any other senator, including Harry Reid, because I was fighting for what we believe in. And anyway, I feel like at this point in history, you got a long answer, that I have been prepared for this. I have never sold out to the lobbyists and the special interests in Wall Street and Silicon Valley and the media. Never. I'm more committed and understand more deeply today than I did when I first came how it's important that the interests of the American people be properly defended.
Senator Sessions, if you look back, and Lord have mercy, I wish that there was so many times that we could see in the future and try to get second chances, maybe a mulligan if you're on the golf course. Would you have done it any different than the way that you did as far as recuse yourself from going after President Trump?
You mean in supporting him?
Well, just in your process, would you maybe have handled it any different?
I think I never like to worry about those kind of things. They have people that worry about their legacy. I've got a firm view about that. You do the right thing every day, somebody else writes your dadgum legacy. So you make the decision you think are right at the time, and then you can defend what you did. And you're honest about it. You don't have to remember, as one old criminal we prosecuted said, as you lie, you forget. And that if you tell the truth, you don't have to worry about it. And so I've always just tried to do it that way, put it on the line, and stand up for what I believe in, and people can say what they will. I'm not afraid of any of them. I've been vetted, and it's time for my opponent. Well, listen, he's got to come out from hiding. He has not opened up. He's not defended his values and told us what he believed. He needs to explain that hedge fund fraud scheme, TNS, Tuberville and Stroud. Stroud goes to jail, gets a 10-year sentence, and he's sued for fraud, for mishandling the money of average Alabama investors. And I think he needs to talk about a one-game suspension to a player who sexually violated a 15-year-old girl who came to campus to visit her sister. So those are kind of things that if you're strong, you'll do. If you're weak, you'll hide out, breach your promise to debate, and not stand up like a man to defend what you believe in.
Senator Sessions, when you look at the way the President Trump has been treated for the last 3 years, have you ever thought, maybe go back to your early start, or you can go at the middle point, that we would see a current president treated either from the media, from fellow, political leaders there in Washington, D.C.? I just look back, and from my seat, and I'm a sports radio host, but I look at it and I'm going, I don't know if they've given him a fair shake in a lot of different avenues.
Well, they're afraid of him. They know his message appeals to the American people. And if he can get in tune with them and talk to them, he's going to win. I'm just telling you. The man has got an incredible drive. It's an incredible strength. He's not perfect. Look, he makes mistakes, and that drive and will gets him in trouble sometimes.
Sure.
But I'm telling you, the man is accomplished in a huge amount. And I always worried when I supported him, and people were asking me, what if he doesn't do what he promised? But he's done what he promised. More than almost any president I can recall is actually achieved in the face of all this opposition what he promised to do. And he doesn't back down, and I think it's good for the country. And I'm telling you, the choice between him and Joe Biden is stark. Biden has drifted left with these radical groups. And one more thing. When this gets down to the last 6 weeks, and it's Donald Trump head-on-head with Joe Biden, Joe Biden's not going to be able to sustain, he's not going to be able to stand up to that, in my opinion. I was with Trump last time. In the last weeks of that campaign, I told him twice, you're going to win because Hillary Clinton cannot match this. And I don't think Joe Biden has the strength and smartness of Hillary Clinton. So we'll see. The people will decide who the next election is. He needs to get on message. Needs to get on message and be more focused. But I do think there's this innate strength and drive that the Lord has blessed him with. I got to tell you.
We're talking to Senator Jeff Sessions right now, visiting with us here for a few more minutes as we're talking right here in Tuscaloosa on Tide 100.9. Senator Sessions, I worry about the youth. You and I can stand up to peer pressure. It's not popular to say that you support the president with the current youth. How can we inspire them to get involved, but not just get involved, but be educated, not go out and, you watch some of the news networks and you're persuaded by a simple comment and to not be blown with the wind, whatever way the wind blows. How can we inspire our youth to not only become engaged, but educated and engaged?
Well, I'm a critic. I don't mind saying it of our universities. Certainly Alabama and Auburn and all our universities are better than a lot of them nationwide. But we're not teaching in a realistic way the magnificent story of America. It can be told honestly. It can be told fairly. But an honest evaluation of our efforts from the founding to make a more perfect union and actually to go through that great Civil War and other civil rights movements and all the things that we've done, and a lot of imperfections, but it's a great, great, great country. And I've been around the world, Iraq, Afghanistan, Kosovo, all these places with our soldiers, and to think you can just transform them into a great constitutional republic like we have, I'm telling you, you can't do it. We are blessed to be in this place and have a heritage of law that even began, I guess, before our country was founded in England. And so I do feel strongly that we need to teach that more effectively, and I'm very angry. Now, as Attorney General, I intervened and filed statements of interest in a series of cases. Many of them involved the students being denied their free speech on campus. And after I left, I made a series of speeches on college campuses and hostile environments in which I would tell those young conservatives, a lot of times I'd be hosted by young Republicans or young conservatives, and I would tell them, I'd read them the Constitution. You are Americans, young people. Nobody tells you how to think. Nobody tells you how to speak. You have rights. And don't let any of these teachers or anybody else tell you that they get to think for you. And you have to kowtow to their views. So I feel strongly this whole heritage of free speech and freedom of religion and other great freedoms is not being appreciated by these leftists that used to be free speech people, and now they've become oppressors.
Senator Sessions, I look at what you're saying with academia, and I agree with you. academia is a lot of this root that has taught people to hate this country, that they should be embarrassed of this country. And listen, do we have things? We have things in our state that we should be embarrassed of, that things that have done. But overall, from 1776, we've accomplished some pretty unique things. And I wonder, when you look at what can be done, because I don't know if these professors are being fair either way. I mean, they're almost like agenda driven as they sit in a classroom and persuade 35, 40 individuals to hate the country that we currently live in.
Yeah, I mean, what if a student comes in and says, I'm for Donald Trump?
Oh, could you imagine? You
know, how much pressure is that to be? I remember the first time I ran for the Senate. My son was there with Auburn, and one of his buddies and his classmates were in the same class, and the guy tried to defend me from a criticism from the professor, and the professor chewed him up. You know, he was a good kid, but I'm just saying, we do not need a good, dutiful, faithful student being hammered by paid professors, by the taxpayers, to erode the great values of this country. I'm sick of it, if you want to know the truth.
When you hear the word defunding the police department, what can law enforcement officers, deputies, highway patrol, there's so many different avenues that we could go, but when you hear the word defund the police department, what goes through your mind?
Oh, it's one of the stupidest things ever. I was a federal prosecutor, U.S. attorney for 12 years, an assistant for 2.5, Alabama attorney general, 20 years on the Judiciary Committee, and almost 2 years as Attorney General of the United States. I went all over this country and told them in every speech, our sheriffs and our police chiefs, you make up 85% of law enforcement, only 15 is federal, and you will determine the safety of your communities. And I want you to know this. I have your back. You have our thanks. And this was a reaction to a bad trend that had happened in particularly the last years of the Obama administration. They were not being properly respected, in my opinion. I saw bad things happening. We made a clear break on that. I honestly believe law enforcement throughout America, morale went up. And then now they seized on, this George Floyd thing, and it's worse than it was before. And defunding the police is horrible. Let me be quick. New York went from 1,200 murders a year to 300 under Rudy Giuliani and smart policing. They targeted high crime areas, and they made arrests and stayed on top of those issues, and they transformed New York. Chicago was averaging 450 murders a year, and they're a third of New York's size. And they signed an agreement with the ACLU after a bunch of riots, and the agreement was what defund the police want to do. It took effect January 1st of 2016. And they went from 450 murders a year to almost 800 in 1 year. And a federal judge studied it. And he said, that a former federal judge, retired, he said that pulling back the police is the single cause. Nothing else explains what happened. So we've got an absolute experiment. And where did the murders occur? It occurred in the poor areas and the minority areas. So this is madness to undermine and demoralize police. You got too many of them retiring early, and 80% saying they would not recommend somebody to become a police officer. This is devastating. It's unbelievably irresponsible. Should never have happened.
Senator Sessions, I just want to give you the last question to go where you need to go. Anything that we have not addressed that you feel like that you need to let the people of Alabama who listen to this program go into the ballot booth on Tuesday and cast a vote for you?
Well, thank you for that opportunity. Look, I'm offering myself. The people of Alabama are going to decide this. People know that the president and I disagreed over one issue, but on crime, on law and order, on federal judges, on immigration, trade, and all his big issues, I was his top ally and would be so in the Senate. I'll be a far more effective senator for the good Trump agenda than Tommy Tuberville will. He just doesn't know anything about this and doesn't even really talk about it. He doesn't seem to have much interest in it. Secondly, I have been blessed to be able to learn a lot, and I didn't sell out. I didn't become part of the establishment. I became more convinced that the American people were right and the establishment was wrong. That's why I supported President Trump. So I will go to the Senate not as somebody that been there too long and doesn't care and lost interest. I go there as a person who I hope that I can be a leader and actually win some battles. We won them before, and we can win some in the future. So I appreciate the opportunity to be with you.
Senator Sessions, you were at one point the highest conservative, as far as percentage-wise, your track record. I mean, you were the highest, and I said this audience, I want to make sure I'm correct on this. I mean, when you look at, when you stepped into another role, you were the highest conservative senator that we had in the United States, or at least at one time.
Well, yes, I've been all people who know the situation in Washington, the Tucker Carlson, Laura Ingraham. Laura Ingraham said, when I announced this is great news for Alabama and Donald Trump. Those people know me. They know I'm authentic, not phony. And they know that I have been effective, and they respect my principle and my integrity. So I guess I tease some of these conservative rating groups, Ryan. I tell them, if you disagreed with me, I probably voted conservative. You were just wrong. I was growing up in Camden with Judy Bonner and friends. I had a teacher that got me to read Conservative National Review. I became a teenage Republican as a teenager, and I find it odd that my opponent at 65 has never even supported a candidate for office before. Apparently, doesn't vote very regularly, and has not even really said he was a Republican until recently. So you need to know when we launch somebody into Washington who they are, and if they're not firmly convicted as a conservative, they will be driven the other way by all the powerful forces in Washington. I don't care about them. I've stood up to them. They don't scare me one bit. They got nothing I'm worried about. But I do worry that Alabama, honestly, who is going to send the conservative voice to Washington if it's not Alabama? For heaven's sake, we don't need to send a potted plant who's afraid to debate. I mean, I took on Sanders and Elizabeth Warrens and Chuck Schumer's and Dick Durbin's and Patrick Leahy's day after day. I'm not afraid of those guys. And I know we're right. Our values are correct. At least that's what I believe, and I don't mind defending them.
Well, Senator Sessions, thank you for your time. I hope I've been fair to you, and I thank you so much for the opportunity here in Tuscaloosa.
Well, that was great. It's good to talk to you, and I'm proud of the university. It's a great asset to this state, that's for sure.
Thank you, sir. Have a great afternoon. Stay safe, my friend.
Bye.
Senator Jeff Sessions.
100.9